The premiere episode of House of the Dragon, titled A Son for a Son, is finally here. In this video, I'll be counting down the top 10 most compelling costumes from the episode, highlighting any callbacks to Season 1 and Game of Thrones, as there are plenty. This list focuses not on the prettiest dresses per se, but on how the costumes reflect the characters and their impact on the storytelling. For the purpose of this video, and the season at large, I won't include any costumes that were already established in Season 1 by costume designer Jenny Tamim. This includes most of the armor, such as the Kingsguard or White Cloaks, worn by Sir Criston Cole and Sir Eric or Sir Auric Cargill, the City Watch or Gold Cloaks, the armors worn by the Valerians, Rhaenys and Damon Targaryen, and the Maester's robes. Additionally, I won't review some of the repeated costumes worn by Corlys Velaryon, Otto Hightower, and some others. To be clear, I completely understand why costume designer Caroline McCall and her team have built their designs based upon existing costumes. This approach helps create continuity in the design, illustrating that in this world, clothes, even those worn by nobles, are costly to create and not disposable. Additionally, for production reasons, building on an existing costume inventory allows more attention to be paid to clothing the principal characters in new looks, while also creating attire for characters in other parts of Westeros. Now, before I move on, I wanted to mention that the White Cloak uniforms have returned in Season 2, but I noticed they corrected the weird gap between the gorget and the breastplate that I've highlighted on Sir Criston Cole in my review of Season 1, so I was delighted to see that improvement. And warning, there will be some spoilers for all of Season 1 and Episode 1 of Season 2. I won't touch on any book spoilers, so please refrain from leaving those in the comments. Thank you. Now let's get on to the countdown. There is something for both Team Green and Team Black. Number 10, Krian Stark. I'm starting this list with Krian Stark, whose visit from Jace kicks off the season. I appreciate that they retain the leather-coated plates, similar to those seen in Game of Thrones, including in flashback sequences with a young Eddard Stark. Notably, the armor features lacing detail where the pieces are seamed together. And Krian sports a fancy silver buckle on his robe straps with an embossed direwolf sigil and ornate belt mounts. While Krian's outfit is a bit more elaborate than we might expect on an adult Ned Stark, I actually prefer the fluffier wolf pelt Ned wore compared to Krian's, which seems a bit flat to me. However, it's nice to see the return of the great ancestral sword Ice worn on Krian's back. Number 9, Helena Gown. Helena wears this brocade gown while doing embroidery in her apartment when Aegon barges in looking for Jaehaerys to bring to the small council meeting. Although we don't see much of this dress, since she's sitting the entire time, it appears to be made of a khaki green brocade fabric with a swirl pattern. The stomacher on the front and the cuffs are adorned with beading. Additionally, she seems to be wearing a sheer fichu, which is a kerchief tucked into her bodice to fill in the low neckline. Based on the teaser and trailer, I know that we will see more of this gown in future episodes. Aemon in leather. While Team Green is closely adhering to their brand, Aemon is charting his own path. He is sharply dressed in a Longline leather doublet, trousers, and tall boots. While the muddy brown of his costume has a slight hint of green, this choice suggests to me he won't fall into line with his grandfather anytime soon, as we see him conspiring with Sir Criston Cole. With his tailored outfit and lanky physique, Aemon evokes Joffrey Baratheon. His leather jacket features substantial gold fasteners on the front and intriguing leather detailing on the shoulders. This look is finished off with a matching leather eye patch. Aemon also carries a short sword with an octagonal pommel on his belt. Now, in my last video, I mistakenly identified it as the ancestral sword Blackfire, but as you can see, they look nothing alike, so I'm not sure what I was thinking that day. Number 7, Helena dressing gown. Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon rarely showcase nightwear, so I'm always delighted to see it. However, I seldom include it when reviewing costumes. I've made an exception with Helena's nightgown and robe worn during the Blood and Cheese segment because of its significance. She wears a lovely white cotton undergown, similar to those worn by the twins, symbolizing their innocence and the terrible price they pay for the crimes of others. The undergown features subtle decoration on the front. Over it, she wears a full-length robe in deep blue-green, fastened at the front with an oversized metal clasp, and it's adorned with gold piping around the collar. In a scene reminiscent of a Gothic story, the outfit looks stunning as Helena ran from her apartment with her daughter in her arms, just as the wind and rain picked up in the courtyard. The train of the robe floated dramatically as she ascended the stairs to her mother's room. Number 6, Jaimes Funeral's funeral attire. Jaimes has a few costumes in this episode, but his funeral attire is the most significant. In terms of color, Jaimes is closely aligned with Reira in the Targaryen black and red, highlighting their close bond as they mourn the loss of their brother and son, respectively. His costume is rich in texture, with the placket on the front of his Longline doublet adorned with scaly leather trim. In my teaser review, I mentioned that I wouldn't be surprised to see the Targaryen dragon sigil featured on his costume, similar to Viserys and Aegon in Game of Thrones, and indeed there it is, though smaller. His maroon cape, the same color as Luke's doublet, is fastened with a penannular brooch, and although difficult to see up close, the brooch features 3 dragon heads. Additionally, it's great to see actor Harry Collette's natural wavy hair in the show, a welcome change from the dreadful wig he wore last season. If you enjoy this content, consider subscribing to my channel, or if you would like to support the channel in a more meaningful way, I've set up a Patreon with tiers that offer perks. You can find the link in my description. Number 5, Damon Black Longline Doublet. Damon is nothing if not consistent. Over the last few decades in the show, he has consistently worn the Longline doublet, the fashionable men's jacket in Westeros. In Season 1, Damon is generally dressed in darker shades of gray, with his leather doublet featuring the scaly textures typical of a Targaryen. Although not confirmed, it's likely that D'Alessandro Galliano leather producers supplied the hides and trim for Damon's costumes. I appreciate the heavyweight fasteners that close his coat and the touch of red suede behind them, a color he rarely wears. This suggests to me that while Damon is somewhat aligned with Reira, he is strong-willed and has a mind of his own, as we see in his clash with Rhaenys. Whether his motivations are for the good of the realm, his family honor, or his ego remains open to interpretation. Number 4, Allison Dark Cyan Gown. Allison wears a single costume in this episode, a medieval-style brocade gown with long hanging sleeves. The gown features an interesting crisscross pattern of gold ribbon overlay inset into the neckline and sheer gold sleeves finished with gold metal cuffs. Despite no longer being a pious woman, at least in her private chambers, Allison's gown includes a gold Faith of the Seven Star pendant at the neckline, adorned with fine embroidery, and a gold chain belt to complete the look. Allison's hairstyle changes throughout the episode. At one point, her hair is down and flowing, and later, after taking a bath and scaring away the help, her hair is braided and held in a snood. In the Grand Sept, she wears the same dress paired with a gold diadem set with small emeralds and a veil. Similar to Season 1, this might have been an opportunity for a second outfit, as it seems odd that she would bathe and then put on the same dress again, especially since she doesn't wear a chemise or a petticoat. Olivia Cook explains the change of Allison's costumes in Season 2. She said that in Episode 9 of Season 1, it's revealed that one of her handmaidens has been spying on her. This leads her to shun household staff and prefer solitude due to her growing paranoia. As a result, Allison's hairstyle is significantly pared back this season, giving the impression that she does it herself. The cut of her dress also feels younger, suggesting that she is shedding her role as an authority figure. Number 3, Rhaenyra Black Scale Dress. The moment when grieving mother, Queen Rhaenyra, embraces her son Jacaerys in this stunning scaly black gown, it delivers a powerful emotional impact to the viewers. She appears in this gown later in the episode for Luke's funeral at sunset, adding this full-length cape that billows in the wind. This striking gown was also featured on the poster. The gown includes accents of dark rose red on the inner collar and a contrasting belt. Its design appears heavily inspired by Daenerys' arrival at Dragonstone costume. The embroidered shoulders feature large metal scales, likely representing dragon vertebrae, which ties into her pendant necklace. Additional embroidery can be seen on the pointed cuffs, especially noticeable when she embraces Jace. Number 2. Aegon Court Costume. The newly crowned king spends a day in his new costume, making a regal impression during his visit to Helena's apartment to find his son for a Take Your Heir to Work day and at the small council meeting. Aegon strikes a commanding figure in his vivid green doublet, the color popping now that the show has corrected the darkness problem of Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon. Showrunner Ryan Condal said, "Season 2 is much more in line with my particular aesthetic and what I think the show should look like." Now, Aegon's doublet is adorned with a metallic gold-embroidered variation of his sigil, featuring a mirror image of Sunfire the Golden, showcasing the incredible work of Michelle Carragher and her team of embroidery artists. Additionally, Aegon's chain of order, once worn by his father Viserys, now incorporates extra links. Once sitting on the Iron Throne, Aegon adds a cape fastened at his shoulders with 2 brooches. The fullness of his skirts, enhanced by gores, is evident both in Helena's apartment and when Aegon sits sideways on the throne with his mates. Despite being dyed green, the gore fabric appears to be the same Targaryen brocade used to line King Viserys' cape during the hunt in Season 1 and Rhaenyra's gold fealty cloak. Of course, Aegon wears Aegon the Conqueror's crown established in Season 1. I do prefer the way it sits on his head this season, although some of you have mentioned that it appears too big for his head, which seems fitting as the young king likely finds his new position overwhelming. Now, before we get to the most compelling costume on this list, I wanted to include a few honorable mentions. First is Alan of Hull, who makes his debut in a very simple costume, matching the ship's crew in Valyrian blue. Another notable mention is Prince Damon Targaryen's murder cloak, a new addition for Season 2. By now, one can imagine he has a steamer trunk full of them. Number 1, Rhaenyra's Red Riding Leathers. Now, I chose this costume as the most compelling for several reasons. It is the outfit Rhaenyra wears when she searches for evidence of Luke's death and finds remnants of his clothes and Eric's dragon wing on the beach. The silhouette is similar to the coat that Damon wears. In Season 1, Rhaenyra also wore riding leathers with a similar leather cutwork as a teen. The costume features a mix of smooth and reptilian leather akin to Damon's attire, possibly suggesting their connection. Additionally, it echoes the riding leathers worn by Daenerys Targaryen in Season 8 of Game of Thrones. And while Rhaenyra's jacket is symmetrical with metal fasteners on the center front, its cut closely resembles Daenerys' coat. The leather is dyed with a distinctive effect. Daenerys' coat is black with a dark red ombre at the hem, whereas Rhaenyra's is dark rose red with a black ombre effect at the hem. Let me know in the comments what you thought of the costumes in this season premiere. I'll have more House of the Dragon content coming your way over the coming weeks. So thank you so much for spending time with me. I'll see you in the next video.